Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and as you can see up here on the bench, I've got a little bit of a portion of food set aside. My aim today is to give this feeding to the bin where we're testing different types of bedding materials. We started out by putting twine in there, and 10 days later we came in and we put some cotton in there, towels, socks, and that's the system that's down here. The center gray box. And anyone who watched the video last time knows that I made a little mistake positioning the feeding zone indicator in this system. So just so you know, the moment I was informed of that, I came down here and fixed the matter. So hopefully when we get in there, it's the way you're expecting to see it. Not the way I left it last time. So I'm going to slip on a glove, we'll get that system up onto the bench, and we're going to get to work. So now, besides the food that we're going to be feeding them that you saw earlier, there's my bedding supply, there's my grit supply, another little visual aid that I've got over there, my gloves. So the main reason I wanted to show that is because that little squirt bottle, I tried to position that in a place where it's right in my way so that I can't do anything without having to reach past it, because I want to start with that. You know, the stuff that's in that little blue bottle, it's this stuff right here, and I've got one of these little cookies or whatever soaking in a bucket behind me, so I filtered off some of that stuff because these little chunks break off within the soaked material. So I just grabbed some of the liquid only, threw it in here so that I can start administering it to my systems. It you know, it's geared up for mosquitoes and works well at that, but it also takes care of gnats and other pests. So, since I heard of other people having great success with it, I decided to adopt it here, and I think we'll still, you know, right there's a gnat, right? I don't know if you could see it. So we'll probably see another one here or there. I don't know, there's one, I guess, yep. A couple more here and there, but ultimately it does seem like this stuff has done wonders. Over the past maybe 40 days that I've been using it, it does seem to have really significantly reduced the number of pests, flying insects, basically gnats or fruit flies or whatever these are that have been in my systems. But now I really wanted this to be first because these little gnats, they don't go digging down 6 inches into the material. They're right here on the surface, you know, so the eggs that they lay, which is what this stuff is targeting, has got to be right there on the surface. So before I just do my big disturbance here within the bin, tilling up, you know, making up, down, and down, up, and stirring all the material that's presently on the surface now down into the bed. Now is the time to apply this stuff. And then we could till away and stir to our heart's delight in here. I guess the funny thing about this coffee filter was that at the end of the feeding last time I just dropped it down the middle, even though it's meant to indicate where we last fed, and right now we've got cotton on one. Is it cotton on one side? Yeah. Cotton was the last side fed over here, and so we're alternating. So it really belonged over the last feeding zone to, you know, remind us where we last fed, so that when we come back in here we can keep to our game plan of switching back and forth. Now I do have a little bit of info about this thing, so before we dive in and see how things are progressing in here, you can see that the age of the system is 113 days. And the numbers alongside twine and cotton indicate how long they've now been in the system. Twine 95 days, cotton 85 days. And there's just some other stuff in here about how many times the system's been fed and how many worms are in here. And it's been 11 days since we were in here last. So before we go, just one more thing. So the twine that I keep talking about, it's, you know, almost indistinguishable from the material in the system anymore. It looks like this. It's this stuff if you've ever used it before. And we'll probably still see socks and pieces of towel just like this one. This is from the same towel on the cotton side. But today, since we last fed on the cotton side, we'll be feeding on the twine side. I'm not giving them any more twine because, I mean, if that twine's been going 95 days now, I wouldn't want to put some fresh twine in here and have to wait at least 95 or longer to really be rid of it all. I think it's the sort of stuff you include in young bins and do so with the knowledge that you've got ample time for that stuff to get broken down. Now, we've got coffee on the menu here, right? We got some stale bread, we got some cantaloupe rinds, even a couple little strawberries out of my yard. Figured I'd pick them before I cut the grass, and yeah, they're just kind of growing wild in my grass. Now that bubble wrap we removed at the beginning, I'm starting to feel like I might want to switch off that, because yeah, as I suspected, I reached down over here into the twine side, and I could feel a lot of moisture. I think the feeding they got last time is similar to what they're getting today. I think there was cantaloupe then, maybe even some banana peels. I mean, if there were, then we'll know. After 11 days, there would definitely be leftovers of banana peels. It does appear as if the twine is gradually dwindling, or at least sort of blending in. Here's the stem of a banana. I'm not sure if that's one of the ones that was fed last time, or maybe it dates back further. This is some sort of a... not sure what this is. Oh, you know what that looks like? At one point I was taking the avocado pits. You know, they're like a hard marble, and you know, if you're careful to not cut your finger, you can slowly and carefully slice them up, believe it or not. You wouldn't think so when you first handle one. It's like tough, hard marble pit from an avocado, but I used to slice them up once in a while to see if it would help with the breakdown. I can't remember the last time I did that. And the fact that we just found a piece of leftover of it in here from who knows how long ago, perhaps it's not helping as much as I had hoped. Yeah, you know, at the beginning I was always trying to collect up the little bits of twine that I can find examples of, and I guess just by its nature, some of it was actually sticking to my glove when I started into that. And, you know, trying to keeping it all together to a certain point, but the stuff is just falling to pieces, and it's just getting blended in at this point. So, you know, now that we're in, you know, approaching 100 days for the twine, I believe, you know, given another 5 or so days, there'll be very, it would be very difficult to, maybe not very difficult, because here you go, you know, pretty good sized pieces of stuff, but I mean, it's definitely broken apart and blended in nicely. It might be too early to call that 100 days is possible for twine. It does seem like it's going to need a little bit more than that. So we're not in a hurry, we're just curious to see how long the stuff will eventually not be visible, so how long that takes. And you can see the worms are in here enjoying whatever it is they got last time. Cantaloupe, coffee, you know, I think it was very similar to today's feeding. But there's no reason to further disturb this side. I guess what I like to try to do is at least get the twine down into the material if possible. I guess I'm just a little superstitious about the top surface of my bins as not being the most trafficked place, although, you know, these are surface feeding type creatures, so for them to roam the surface looking for food is not unusual, but to me it always just seems like stuff blended down into the bed is what's most likely to get the most attention from the worms. So, and I guess not only that, but you know, just based on the amount of moisture I'm seeing in here, I'm starting to feel like it might be time to do away with the plastic coverings and not bring back that bubble wrap that we were covering with previously. Maybe just a little piece of newspaper, maybe not even a piece of newspaper that covers the entire top. Maybe even start allowing parts of the top surface to just get some air and dry a bit, allow some of the moisture in the system to exit slowly. Not that it's a critical issue or anything, and the moisture definitely aids in the breakdown of materials, enables the worms to pretty much roam every, you know, cubic inch of the area that they're in. They don't feel like they've got to, you know, steer clear of certain sections because there's excess dryness or anything like that. So the worms will definitely always vote for a nice damp space to live in, but it certainly doesn't need to be this damp, because at some point we'll want it to be much drier, I think, and that day might be soon. So it might make a good next step to swap out covering. So leads us over to more or less the end of just boring inspection, but now we're on to the exciting feeding. Actually, the inspection is the most fun. The feeding itself is usually not that exciting. Holy moly. Got some worms down here. This would be sock, piece of white cotton tube socks. One's where I chopped off the bottom part of it, which is what goes on your foot, separating it from the part of it that is elastic and comes up your calf and holds it up on your calf. Figured maybe if there was part of it that was elastic, that stuff might not be material that the worms will consume. So I'm imagining when we get in, when we get near the end with this stuff, there'll probably be strands of stuff in the elastic material that's left behind by the worms, stuff that they can't consume. But my assumption is they'll nibble everything else down. I don't know, I heard somebody in one of the comments of my videos talk about how they, saw a cotton t-shirt getting, nibbled down within the matter of just a couple weeks, completely, like, gone. Makes me wonder, why am I, coming up on 3 months now with this, with these cotton socks? It seems like they'd be long gone if it was just a 2 or 3 week process. I don't know, maybe there's something about my stinky socks the worms don't like. I can't imagine that. Here we've got some, this is just some leftover coffee filter. And at this point, this coffee filter that we so carefully folded up over here in the beginning, we can kind of shred that up into little surplus bedding too, because we'll just use one of the new ones that we're bringing in as the new top covering auxiliary special purpose top covering, which indicates to us where we last fed. And it's going to be over here. I think I see banana stems. This is what a banana stem starts to look like really when all the individual strands start to separate from one another, as the the tight dense stuff that it's made up of starts to come apart. Easy to recognize. That's quite an amount of time there. Here you can still see this one's got to be much younger, where the stem of the banana is still attached to the peel, the banana peel over here. So I think we're going to, did we get everything? This would be a piece of the beach towel here. You can even still kind of make out some of the colors, right? You can tell that's red and there's blue, I think. I don't know, maybe not. Definitely hard to tell at this point. So I think we've pretty much found all the items that are the test subjects here. They're all here in a big pile. This is like a piece of cantaloupe rind, leftovers from previous feeding. So hopefully they don't get bored with cantaloupe rinds. Obviously they've been getting a good bit of it. Alright, what's this? This is another piece of sock, I believe, or is this also beach towel? This looks like beach towel. So here's all of our bedding. This is what we're tracking the progress of. Certainly not as quick as the twine. I think the twine is kind of approaching its conclusion soon. Probably doesn't need much more than a few more weeks, I think, or at least I'm assuming so. But we'll see. I just always imagine this sort of tipping point where it seems like it's just taking forever, but all that while this stuff is sort of getting to that eventual stage where it'll just suddenly speed up and be gone in no time. I just thought I'd do a quick last pour through the material that we excavated as we were examining. See if we missed any chunks of sock or beach towel, but I think we found them all. Yeah, we did. This stuff is definitely nice and damp. I think it'll do the system a lot of good to not have plastic coverings at this point. The piece of paper that I'm putting on, when you see it, is, you're going to be surprised. It's a little bit flimsy, just one single thin sheet of newspaper. And it's not even big enough to go all the way edge to edge on this bin, so it's going to leave a good, 2 or 3 inches, maybe 2 inches, maybe the width of 3 fingers, at least 2, all the way around, allowing for at least that edge surface to have direct exposure to the air to allow for some gradual drying. This stuff we're giving them, it's it's definitely going to bring with it a little bit more moisture. All that fresh cantaloupe coming in here, as that thaws out and gets eaten, broken down, it's going to emit moisture. All right, maybe we'll kind of stack in these bits of cotton here. And we'll start combining it with some of the food as well as some of this bedding that I've got here. So we'll start with this here. Drop in some coffee. This can be the one that we set aside and mark with to show ourselves where we last fed. And we'll see if we can get it right this time. And what you saw here was some dry bread. Kind of had a little bit of a funky flavor to it, so it seemed like it might be time to just set it aside and save it for the wormies. Now I guess we can start bringing in some of this frosty cantaloupe rind here. It's been sitting out for a couple hours now. I started prepping for this video a while ago. Then I proceeded to cutting the grass and unwinding my tomato hooks. So these are what I use as my little tomato hooks. So this would be last year's tomato hook, from which I've not yet removed the twine, you know. So it's just a wire hanger crafted into sort of a cleat here, and then I just attach the string on there, wrap it around, and I've got my ability to lower and lean my tomatoes as they grow. So what do we got here? We put about half of it in here, right? And we just start proceeding with the restoration of the rest of the cotton stuff. This way I don't feel so guilty knowing that the even though some of this melon still has some frostiness to it, not completely thawed out yet, but it's not like it's completely frozen. Don't want to be unnecessarily, you know, bumping frozen stuff up against the poor little wormies. Not that it would really injure them or anything like that. No reason for concern if it does happen. Alright. You know what? I got that other filter coming, so we'll just use that as the marker. This one's right here, so let's just proceed to converting it to being bedding. More bedding. Very generous on the bedding today. So I'm coming for another handful. Let's throw that in here too. And before we proceed, let's not forget, I also like to sometimes include grit in my feedings, and the grit that I use is just pulverized eggshell. It's something that the worms kind of need, because they don't digest the way you and I do. They digest kind of more like mechanical means, grinding the food in their gizzards, because they don't have stomachs like you and I. They've got gizzards. And the coarse, fine particle matter that they consume is kind of rubbed up against the foods that they eat in order to help break down the stuff and digest it. So that's the reason I add that stuff. And well, I didn't leave too many pieces of leftover food here. Maybe we'll leave this piece of bread whole. I kind of broke up that first piece. Maybe it'll be more interesting to see how a piece of bread like this proceeds to break down in the worm bin. As a whole item, I think usually mold is the first thing that goes nuts on a piece of bread. So if we come in here, it won't be surprising just to see a whole bunch of mold all over it. Maybe not even much worm activity at all. That's usually what I would expect to see from bread. But I guess that's also maybe just a function of how soon or how long it takes before the next time we check in, you know. If we wait long enough, we could come in and see no sign of it at all, because I can imagine that's something that's going to go pretty quick. So once the mold moves in and starts breaking down the bread, the worms will sense the mold there and come right in afterwards. So I don't know, do we give it another shot? Why not? I gotta say, it does appear as if the flying insect situation in my systems has more or less vanished at this point. So my only hope is that just by saying it out loud, I've not jinxed it and triggered sort of a exact opposite reaction. So, did I get it right? Did I put the feeding zone indicator in the right place? I think I did. So I had just been using this piece of paper on my oldest system at this point to allow for some modest covering that would also allow for some drying, but I really wanted to step up the drying over there, so I have since removed this, and now it's just sitting naked to the air. But I think this will do good here, you know, because this system doesn't need to really be drying out a great deal, but it also doesn't need to hang on to all this moisture we're introducing with all that fruit, with all that spray down of the BTI liquid. I think it is time to start letting the system get a little bit more exposure to the passing air and to ventilate so that it doesn't end up a big muddy mess. Because right now it is a little bit sticky and wet, so it does feel like it has the potential to go one way. I'd prefer to see it go another. A slightly more crumbly and granular way. Alright everyone, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. If you're interested in providing monetary support, there's also channel memberships. You know, for a small amount every month, you can become a subscribing member and show your support by throwing me a couple bucks every month. Well, think about it. It would be kind of nice to see. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Bye now.